Hello, students. I am Mr. Sandwich. Today on Mr. Sandwich Reads, I'm reading chapter 21 of Donna Napoli's The King of Mulberry Street. So check it out. Hello, students, and welcome to Mr. Sandwich Reads. I am, of course, Mr. Sandwich. Today we're reading chapter 21 of The King of Mulberry Street. When we last left off on chapter 20, entitled Pietro, which is about Tin Pan Alley. Tin Pan Alley, they're going to break away from his padrone, create a little girl disguise for him, so he can get around town and still get past his padrone. He finds out how much the actual ticket costs to get to America and realizes I must have paid off my padrone years ago. And he sort of admits, like, I could have figured that out. Really, I should have known that, and maybe I was just in denial. I was afraid to leave my padrone. I didn't know what else I could do. And that sort of leaves Dom feeling like at the end, you know what? I sold thousands of sandwiches now, or at least would you say like over 1,000 sandwiches. I've made enough money for my ticket back home. Maybe I'm afraid of something. So maybe there's some denial that Dom has gotten used to his new life in America. So let's find out. Let's go into chapter 21 here. Crosby Street. This is on page 219. And we only have a few chapters left. We've only got 2 chapters in a postscript here. Let's see what happens. I should have been overjoyed to know I could go back. I walked slowly, reminding myself of what I loved about my city. Going over my memories usually made me feel safe. As long as I did that, nothing truly awful could happen. But it didn't work that night. When I got home, Pietro wasn't there. He didn't come back, and he didn't come back. Even inside, I grew cold, so cold, my teeth ached. But it didn't work that night. When I got home, Pietro wasn't there. He didn't come back, and he didn't come back. Even inside, I grew so cold, my teeth ached. At midnight, Gaetano said, "Go to bed, I'll look for him." Instead, I went out the door with him. We walked up and down every street and every alley of 5 Points, calling his name softly so we wouldn't wake anyone. Pietro wouldn't have left the neighborhood. He was still far too skittish to do that, wasn't he? We went back home at dawn, just the 2 of us. So maybe pause right here if you're with a classmate. Pause, make a prediction. What do you think happened to Tin Pan Alley? What do you think is going to happen to Tin Pan Alley? Why don't you think he came back last night? All right, hopefully you had a moment to make a prediction here. What happened to Tin Pan Alley, or what will happen to Tin Pan Alley, and why didn't he come home last night? A sense of dread made me sluggish. I'd seen life change in a flash. One moment, I was Mama's boy. The next, I was on my own. But this couldn't be another flash. I wouldn't let it. Pietro had to come back. We couldn't search anymore, not now. It was a work day, and people depended on us. Old Lady Casson would have egg and potato sandwiches waiting in less than an hour. And there were Pirano and Grandinetti and Withold and the Polish butcher and Martino, the baker, and the boys. Michelle and Nicola and Roberto, who wanted to sell from the cart, all of them counting on us. So we went to work. As we were selling breakfast, I looked over at the boy playing the triangle. I'd looked at him every chance I got all morning, but he'd always had his back to me, as though on purpose. Now I caught him looking at me too. He turned his back instantly. Something awful had happened for sure. Pietro had talked about the padrone's other boys the night before. He'd said almost all of them had paid their debt over and over. He'd said none of them knew that. Everything outside my head went silent. Pietro was loyal. He'd never let those boys stay in the dark about this. I walked up to the boy. His eyes showed terror, and he turned his back to me. "Is he at your padrone's place?" I asked, speaking to his back. He played his triangle loud and fast. "Okay," I said. "I don't want to get you in trouble. I need information, that's all. You live on Crosby Street. I know that much. Just tell me the number." He played that triangle as though his life depended on it. Maybe it did. I walked away fast, looking around, praying his padrone wasn't spying. As we pushed the cart back to 5 Points to get ready for the lunch shift, I asked Gaetano, "Did Pietro ever tell you where his padrone lives?" "No, and I don't even think about it." And don't even think about it. No, and don't even think about it. "He told me he lived on Crosby Street, but I don't know where exactly." "Shut up," said Gaetano. "He went there. I'm almost sure of it. I told you what he said when he found out how much a ticket costs. He went to tell the other boys." "Shut up. I mean it." Gaetano grabbed both handles of the cart and pushed fast. I ran along beside him. "He told me once that his padrone ties the boys to the bedposts at night so that they won't run away. He's probably tied up right now." "It doesn't matter. I know what the padroni do. Everyone in 5 Points knows. Everyone but you. We've all seen it. You can't do anything to help him." "Yes, I can." Bam! And I was on the ground, my ear ringing where Gaetano had punched me. "Shut up! No crazy plans!" he shouted down at me. "You don't know what happened to him. You don't know anything, you mook. And even if you're right, it's his own fault for going there. Anything you do might get you in trouble, and you'll be dead, or as good as dead. It'll be so bad that you'll wish you were dead. So just shut up." He wiped his eyes with the back of one hand and went back to pushing the cart. I got to my feet and punched Gaetano in the middle of his back. He whirled around and put up his fist, but then he shook his head and dropped them. We went through the motions of the lunch shift almost without thinking, but after lunch, all I could see was Pietro hanging in the wind, abandoned. Nonna would have been so ashamed of me. Loyalty was everything. Pietro's padrone was bad. The way Franco on the cargo ship was bad. When Franco kept Mama off the ship, I didn't do anything because I didn't know what was going on. But now, I couldn't stand this. Gaetano could handle the evening shift without me. All he had to do was try to speak English, and he could do the whole thing with a couple of boys helping him. So while Gaetano was off buying the candies to load on the cart, I put one of the last oranges of the season in my pocket for Pietro, and I ran up Mulberry to Canal Street and asked which way Crosby was. I was there in 5 minutes. The trouble was, Crosby Street was lined on both sides with tall buildings, and it was long. Pietro could have been tied up in any one of hundreds of apartments. What do you think here? Do you think Dom's making the right choice? Would you do this? Go searching for Tin Pan Alley? Do you think he's going to find him? And do you think this is? I mean, it's certainly not safe, but is it worth the risk? What would you do here? Well, there was still a couple of hours, at least, before the boys who worked for the padrone would come home. So the padrone himself was out on the streets checking up on them. If I went fast, if I had any kind of luck, I'd find Pietro in that time. The first building had a laundry on the ground floor. I went up one flight, then the second, then the third. I knocked on door after door. At a few, no one answered. 2 were opened by women, 2 by old men, 1 by a group of children. The children slammed the door in my face. Most adults shooed me away. 1 woman answered, but she didn't know where a padrone and a bunch of children lived. But one old man said, "There's a padrone in every building, the whole length of Crosby." How many padroni could there be in this city? Dozens? Hundreds? But I couldn't think like that. The search was just starting. I tried the next building and the one after that. So many doors, confused faces, frightened, annoyed. I was coming down from the top floor of the 6th building when I heard a woman singing, "Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy." I stopped and gripped the banister. A second later, I was face to face with Pietro's padrone, climbing the stairs. Our eyes met in a moment of shock. Then his face twisted with rage. I turned and ran back up the stairs and down the hall to the door at the end. the only door on that floor where someone had answered me, an elderly woman, but at least she had a lock on her door. Before I got there, he hooked me around the chest from behind. He clamped his other hand over my mouth. Caught, and good as dead. I tried to bite. I kicked. I reached my hands over my head and scratched at his eyes. He lugged me to the rear apartment, then he let go of my chest and twisted one arm up behind me till I saw stars. If you make a noise, I'll put your arm out of the socket. I'll pull your arm. If you make a noise, I'll pull your arm out of the socket. He spat in my ear. You haven't known pain till you felt that. Then I'll throw you out the back window. Understand? He kept hold of my arm and took his other hand off my mouth and fumbled with a key in the lock. I screamed. He had the door open and shoved me through so hard I fell and skidded halfway across the floor, dizzy and sick. But he let go of my arm. He locked the door behind him and stood there. I breathed deep, getting ready to shout my lungs out. When he came at me, I'd have to move fast and grab anything I could use as a weapon. He stood there. So I let my eyes take in the room. Along the wall to my left were iron rings with rope through them. A small boy lay on his side in the corner, one wrist tied to the last ring. His eyes were closed, but I thought I saw his eyelids move. Pietro had lied. The boys weren't bound to bedposts. There were no beds. They lay on the floor like animals. The table near the door held stacks of bowls and a pile of spoons. Beside it, a hook stuck out from the wall. A short whip curled on it. On the other side of the table was a single chair. The padrone dropped his hat on that chair, and he just stood there. My eyes jumped across him to the wall with windows looking out the rear of the building. Beside a large wood trunk stood an old 3-drawer bureau. The bottom drawer was partway open. There was a single bed and a large wood crate full of ratty blankets, and another crate overflowing with clothes. "Why?" came the gruff voice. The padrone cleared his throat. "Why are you here?" he asked, now in a more normal tone, speaking Neapolitano. The rage was gone from his face. Everything was gone from his face. Caught, and good as dead. I had nothing to lose. "Where's Pietro?" I said loudly. The boy in the corner let out a little hiss, as though he touched a hot stove. I looked at him, and he rolled over to face the wall. He was so skinny that his hip bones smacked on the floor as he moved. He stuck the index finger of his free hand in his top ear and pressed the other ear into the floor. "There's no Pietro here." "He came here last night," I said. The padrone's eyes flickered for a second. "You looked around just now. You didn't find him. Why?" He picked up his hat and sat on the chair and leaned toward me. "Because he isn't here," he growled. "I won't leave without him." One side of the padrone's top lip curled up at that. "Did your padrone send you to take his place?" "His place isn't here," I said. "He doesn't owe you a thing. He paid off his debt years ago. Most of the boys did. A passage only costs $25. They just don't know it." The padrone jumped to his feet. I flinched, ready to spring out of the way, and I gasped. I flinched, ready to spring out of the way, and I gasped. Just tensing my muscles like that hurt my shoulder so bad. "You're lucky my boy here is sick and isn't listening," he said, "and I won't have my boys infected with your nonsense." "You're a criminal." I made my voice as strong as I could. "Everything you do is illegal." He jammed his hat on and felt around the rim with both hands, slowly. "So you're not a criminal. You've got a padrone that makes you part of the crime too. Or hey, don't you have a padrone, huh?" How stupid I'd been to say that. If anything could have protected me, it was a padrone. "I have a boss." "A boss, huh?" He pointed at me. "Well, your boss broke the rules. He stole my boy. He owes me." He stuck out his bottom lip. "He owes me you. And with training, I think you'll make a good worker." He lunged and grabbed me by the shoulder that was still throbbing, holding me at arm's length. With the other hand, he took the whip and lashed. My back was aflame. He struck again and again till I was hanging from his hand. Then he dragged me to the wall and dropped me face down and bound my wrist to an iron ring. "The rest of the lesson will have to wait. The boys will be home soon. I have to go pick up their supper. You'll wait for me." And he left, locking the door behind him. My mouth was open in the scream I never let out. It was easier to breathe that way. There was no limit to my pain, fire all over my back. I knew I was bleeding, and bad. The tatters of my shirt stuck to me, even on my belly. Gaetano had been right. I almost wished I was dead. The boy rolled over to me. His face was flushed and feverish. I forced myself onto my side and pushed my bound arm as close to him as I could. "Can you help me? With your free hand and mine, we can untie the rope. He'll catch you, then it'll be worse." "He won't catch me. Help me, please. If you get away, he'll kill me. Come with me." "I don't want to." "Okay," I said in desperation. "Okay. You can say I had a knife. You can say I cut myself loose. Do you have a knife?" "No." The boy shut his eyes. "Where's Pietro?" I asked. "How do you know him?" I worked my pocket open. The orange was still there. "This is for him." I put it on the floor in front of the boy's nose. "He's my friend." The boy struggled to a sitting position. "He's my friend, too." He bit the orange that was for Pietro, chewing the peel and all. "There's a knife in the top drawer of the bureau." He took another bite. If we get you free, you have to cut the rope and put the knife back. Then the padrone will believe me. That you had a knife." "Okay. You swear on the Virgin Mary?" The Virgin Mary wasn't anyone to me, but I would do what the boy said. "I swear." "Say it. Say, 'I swear on the Virgin Mary.'" "I swear on the Virgin Mary." We worked on the knot. The boy's fingers were better at it, stronger. Mine trembled so. The knot came loose at last. "Thank you." I crawled across the floor to the burrow, pulled open the top drawer, crawled back with the knife, and cut the rope. The boy looked beyond me, and his face showed horror. I looked too. A telltale trail of blood ran to the burrow and back. Even the knife was bloody. Everything I had touched was bloody. I got to my feet with difficulty and took a shirt off the top of the pile of clothes in the open crate. A shoe tumbled to the floor. One of Pietro's shoes. I looked at the boys, tears already dropping hot on my hands. "He's dead," he said. "My padrone beat him till he died." Something inside me creaked high and thin, as though I was coming apart. "Come with me," I managed. "I can't. You have to. My brother is here. If I leave, my brother will pay." Caught and good as dead. I used the shirt to wipe the blood off the handle of the knife, then put the knife back in the burrow and shut the drawer and wiped the burrow. Then I mopped up the trail of blood. I searched in the crate for Pietro's other shoe. Got it. "Where's his body?" "I don't know," said the boy. "There are two rivers. I couldn't manage the stairs holding those shoes, so I threw them down a flight. Then I clung to the rickety banister. The world kept getting dark. There was no window in the hall, but I knew it was more than that. I was fighting to stay conscious. Down a flight. I picked up the shoes and threw them before me again. Down another flight. I threw the shoes the last flight, and as they left my hand, I fell, tumbling head over heels, my back blazing. I lay at the bottom of the stairwell and looked toward the door to the street. It was only a body's length away, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Survive. Mama's first rule. Simply survive. I rolled onto my stomach and pulled my arms in under my chest and tried to push myself to sitting. I couldn't. Pietro's shoes had landed off to the side. He had loved those shoes as much as I loved mine, but it would take so much energy to get them. Survive. I dragged myself to the door. With every last bit of strength I had, I grabbed the knob and pulled myself to my feet, and I fell through the door as it opened out onto the sidewalk. That's when I heard them. "Dom!" They were yelling. "Dom! Dom, where are you?" And then, "Look, that's him!" And the sound of running, shoes running, 2 sets. I wanted to see them, both of them. I wanted to tell them to save Pietro's shoes. But I blacked out. All right, that's going to take us into chapter 22, which is the last chapter. And then we have a postscript to tell us a little bit after. So, exciting, though horrifying stuff. Tin Pan Alley. seems to be dead. Spoiler alert. Hopefully you've watched everything or listened and or read up to chapter 20. Do you think there's any kind of movie twist here? Usually at the end of like a horror movie, somebody comes back. This isn't a horror movie. This is historical fiction. So it's based in a real time, real events. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem, just as in reality, not everybody made it through or makes it through a difficult situation and difficult time. It seems Tin Pan Alley, unfortunately, doing the right thing with his, he was very loyal. Did he do the right thing? I don't know. Should he have just lived his life, or did he do the right thing to go and tell the other boys that worked for the Padrone, like, you paid your ticket? It seemed like the one boy that was there, though he maybe didn't hear Dom when Dom said they paid their ticket off, but he still didn't want to leave. His brother was there. So this sense of loyalty sort of traps the kids with their Padrone. All right, stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed that. That was chapter 21, Crosby Street, and I'll have chapter 22 along with the postscript up shortly. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and please share. All right, take it easy.